Hi, you're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and welcome to this special program with the Business World and NewsX that have come up with this program jointly, and it's going to talk about the economic stimulus. So the stimulus package was met with some sort of a mixed response. The migrant crisis and the stalled economic activity is becoming more of a problem for everyone, rather a headache, if we can call it. There's no clarity from anywhere on the status of the vaccine, and a cure has only made the sentiment about recovery even stronger. But what more can be done by the government? What kind of contingent help can the government be expected to deliver? Let us discuss this with the notable stakeholders from the business community. And let me start by introducing my esteemed panelist onto the show. Mr. Anurag Batra, Editor-in-Chief of Business World, joins me on the program. Anurag, nice
Thank
to
you,
see
Vineet.
Welcome to the show. Mr. Adarsh Gupta, Managing Partner at Liberty Footwear Company, is also with us. Ms. Gupta, welcome to the show. Dr. Paul Dinakaran, Chancellor of Karunya Deemed University, is also here with us. Sir, a pleasure to have you here. Mr. Hiran Gada, CEO, Shimaru Entertainment, is also on the panel with us. Mr. Gada, always nice to see you. And Mr. Vinesh Menon, CEO of Ampersand Group, is also here with us. And Mr. Dinkar Marla, business advisor and a renowned chartered accountant, is also here with us. And Mr. Amitabh Taneja, CEO of Images Group, also joins us on the broadcast. And last, but by no means the least, Mr. Prasad Sharma, CEO of BioQ. Gentlemen, welcome to this special broadcast. And let me, in fact, start by asking Mr. Adarsh Gupta the first question. The stimulus package has been hailed, by a lot of economic quarters, but at the same time, it's left a lot of people to wonder as to what's in it for them. When you heard what Nirmala Sitharaman announced over a course of 5 days, what were some of the concerns that you had, Mr. Gupta?
Good evening, everybody. As far as stimulus package announced by our finance minister and a precursor given by the prime minister for about 20 lakh crore being offered to the nation as a stimulus package raised the expectation. And when the finance minister started talking about the details of such package, the focus was initially on 3 lakh crore, which was offered as loan to the industry and primarily for the MSME. Now, I have been advocating for some kind of relief package for MSME from 18th of April, and I have met Labour Minister and also made representation to Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Commerce Minister, and everybody. The reason is that when Liberty started in 1944, we started as a micro industry, and the definition of micro today has changed to say 5 crore of investment. So at that point in time, it was only maybe 500 rupees and not more. And from micro, our journey passed through small and then to medium and then to large. But footwear industry, by and large, all across the world, except maybe plastic footwear or sports footwear, is dependent on the MSME industry all over the world. And we work very closely with MSME sector. And even today, although we are a large manufacturer, but close to about 5,000 MSME work together with us. So we understand their pain, and knowing that the business model they have is probably entrepreneur driven, where there's a one-man show and there is a kind of a thekedar kind of person who is made responsible for all the problems to be solved to probably deliver the goods to the large sector or to maybe the customer. So therefore, he absorbs all the pain. He does not have liquidity with him. So he is hand to mouth. And whatever he has earned in the last, say, 5 to 50 years of his journey of business, he has invested the entire money in business. And he does not rely on probably the lending from the banking sector. So therefore, such MSME entrepreneur do not have really the connect with the bank. So therefore, they are looking for a very simple solution for their problems to be solved. So therefore, what was proposed to the government was that some of the MSME contribute to the Employee Provident Fund, which is holding about 12 lakh crore of rupees in the kitty. And if that money can be used as a guarantee to pay, to give loan to the MSME sector based upon their entitlement by way of the contribution they have of the employees. So it was estimated that 5 to 6 lakh crore of rupees can be easily given to the MSME sector, which can be used by the industry for fighting with the problem of lockdown. But to my surprise, when the scheme was announced by the government, simultaneously MSME definition was changed. So our idea was that if the previous definition was to impose, the money will go to the really needy people. But now the MSME sector limit has been increased to 100 crores, and now there are talks going on to increase it to 250 crores. The point here is that most of the large sector or medium sector who are doing turnover of over 25 crore, they have some kind of banking facilities already available with them. But what about those who does not have any facility of the bank? Now, in the present scheme, there is no provision for those entrepreneur or manufacturer who does not have a banking facility. So they will not be entitled to get any money from this scheme. So therefore, there are high expectation. And if, let us say, we keep on using this announcement or maybe relief package for pleasing everybody, so from 100 crore, from 10 crores to 100 crores and 100 crores to 250 crore becomes the MSME limit. And now there are other traders, retailers and wholesalers are expecting to get on board to take a loan from this scheme. So the government will need at least 10 to 12 lakh crores. So 3 lakh crore will not be enough. And the RBI has given guidelines only today after 2 weeks of announcement. And if anybody studies these guidelines, it is a 9-page document. It is a very complex document. I don't think in the next 2 weeks some money will be disbursed under the scheme. So therefore, this may remain on paper until the government simplify the scheme. And if the scheme is simplified, I expect that the government has to probably increase the amount from 3 lakh crore to 10 to 12 lakh crore to really give benefit to the needy people.
Right, absolutely. And, Mr. Dinakaran, do you think that the government with this contingent liability has managed to please everyone? Or do you think there is going to be a section, in the country who are absolutely baffled by the stimulus package? Because, if we can remember what happened or transpired in the Western world, that's in fact stuck to everybody's head that, Donald Trump gave away $1,000 to everybody in the United States. Whether that person was a bricklayer or a CEO, he got money in his bank account. I understand that we are not the kind of an economy that the United States is, but at the same time, do you think that people largely are not very comfortable with the kind of stimulus language which has been used?
Well, everything has been sudden, and even this package had to be thought over, and we had no precedents, and certainly our infrastructure to distribute the packages has not been tested yet, and people are not aware. We have a language barrier, especially in the South and so on, and the communication going to people also has had a lot of impediments. As you said, in the US, everybody got money, whether they have money or whether they did not have money, everybody had it. So the ultimate goal was to reach those who desperately needed it. And of course, in that process, some who don't need it also don't get it. In this process, there are several groups in India which really need the packages. And so there has to be a system by which all levels of government and the disbursement authorities are taken into confidence, and they need to know how to do it and how to reach it to the people. As we heard just now, the banking and the beneficiary, they have not got connected. In the same way, the government system by which this has to be dispersed, that also needs to be strengthened, and people need to know how to operate this. So, yes, it is not fully reaching, but yet somewhere we have begun, and I believe it will grow as all along the way.
All right, Mr. Hirangada, let me come to you. The entertainment industry, obviously, is a part of that struggle that a lot of other industries are also facing at the same time. As a common man, as a common citizen of the country, the thought does cross my mind that, what's becoming of the auto driver? What's becoming of the Uber and the Ola guys? How are they going to make ends meet? Do you think that the stimulus package has comprehensively managed to cover these people who perhaps don't have a voice?
I think so. I'll break it up into two parts. One is the media entertainment industry. So our industry employs a few million people directly or indirectly, and it's been hit in multiple ways. I mean, one is on the supply side. The shooting of content is stopped, and of course, the good news is that some of it has restarted as we speak in a few states. But for last almost 3 months, we've not had any shooting. So there's a whole lot of people directly, indirectly related to that who kind of literally had no work. On the demand side or on the revenue side, the whole advertising, because of the way the economy has gone, the advertising spends have come crashing down. And in addition to that, theaters have been shut. So it's a multiple whammy, not even a double or a triple whammy. I can't even count some of the other challenges. And at the same time, let's not forget the key important role that the overall media entertainment industry has played in helping people stay at home. I mean, including whether news channel like yours or OTT platforms like ours, or TV, other broadcast channels that we run, or other rest of our industry participants run. So for an industry that has actually played a very pivotal part in keeping people entertained and informed at home, the challenges are multiple. So our industry bodies have been interacting very closely with the relevant ministers and government officials, and in fact, even today we had a meeting which the CII had kind of facilitated. So there's a lot of conversation happening in terms of specifics, etc. I won't want to get into all of that, but just this is to highlight the plight of the media entertainment sector. Now, to answer your question, yes, it's a huge challenge that the marginal worker, whichever sector it is probably going to bear the harshest brunt of this, because as things as the lockdown got extended, more and more the paying capacity of organizations, of consumers, of across the board has gone down, and because of that, the first impact is on a lot of marginal workers. So all these Ola, Uber, or many of the layoffs that we've been reading about in this is a challenge. Now, how do you address it? I think the government has obviously tried many things. We understand that the government has its hands tied due to fiscal deficit and other challenges, because their own revenue is challenged. But I think something much more deeper, or something which can impact and bring back the confidence in people that yes, things will come back, things will because many times it's as if I use a Hindi film analogy, dawa and dua, it's both the things that work together, right? So dawa is your stimulus, but dua is your confidence kind of a thing. So it's both these things that kind of is something that will I feel is needed.
Right.
And Hiren, one of the whammies is advertising disappearing, coming
Absolutely.
to 20% from 100 to 20%,
That was
10% in some level. So,
Absolutely.
as you talk to multiple whammies, loss of advertising revenue is a big problem for the media industry. So I'm sure we'll come to that later,
Absolutely.
but just wanted to add that that's one more whammy added.
Yeah.
Vineet? Yes, Vineet.
Right, absolutely. And Mr. Menon, if I think of myself as an entrepreneur, if I think of myself as a small business owner, and I hear about the stimulus package, the first thing that comes to my mind would be the impediments, would be the problems that I'm going to face, while I'm going to go and get that loan for myself. Even if I go and get that loan for myself, the first thing that will come to my mind is that, if I get that loan, do I get enough business to justify that kind of investment? Do I get enough people? Do I get that demand that will justify the risk that I'm taking? I'm still paying interest. There could be a liberty in the first year, but for the remainder of the 3 years or 4 years or whatever, I have to pay interest. So there is no confidence. What do you do in such a predicament?
Okay, Vineet, good evening. See, first of all, I think the whole education industry, in fact, people shy away from even calling this an industry, and I think it's high time we did. Now, this is one industry that requires far, far greater attention than what is being given today. I mean, look at India. We've got almost 1.5 million schools, right? Nearly about 300 million students, and almost 100% of the students are today sitting at home. I'm talking just school education here, pre-primary to 12th. Now, the whole stimulus package from the Honorable Finance Minister, tranche 4 and 5, I think touched upon education a bit. Ideally, we would have liked it to be far, far better than what it is announced. What did she? I think she announced an e-Vidya.
15,000 crores. 15,000 crores.
No, and an e-Vidya platform that was launched. Prime Minister's e-Vidya fund. She allowed universities to go online. 15,000 crores. But I think what was really required was sharper interventions to get a few concerns off the ground going. Like you rightly said, I think the real pain has been with respect to a lot of parents not paying fees to schools. And I'm talking the private schools out here. There were mixed signals given by the government, and a lot of parents just refused to pay fees, saying that the schools are closed. Well, school buildings were closed. Schools are never closed. And the schools had to continue to pay their teachers, their staff. And I think that's where there could have been a bit of an intervention. The priority sector lending, which education is a part of, should have been given a higher stimulus. Probably there should have been interest-free loans for the schools to pay the teachers. There should have been interest-free loans for parents to pay fees. And I think this is a good good period to really work on the GST rules. I mean, the existing GST rules does not allow a school to take GST from the parents, but it has to incur GST when it takes goods and materials to impart education. So I think these 3 points should have been worked on. And number 4, I think they should have done a little more to bring in a certain jump start to the whole teaching of government students or government school students. Probably brought in some initiatives to create PPP, public-private partnership, get the private players into the government schools, bring that whole e-learning platform into a different level of efficiency. I think that should have been focused on rather than keeping it on the surface, because education cannot be really positioned from the surface. It has to really go down into the details.
Right, and one more supplementary question for you, Mr. Menon, is that since education is going to be predominantly sourced online now, don't you think that the government has to be a little more doordarshi, for the lack of a better word? They have to have projections looking into the future as to what more can be done in the sphere of education, because everything is beginning to get digitalized, and education obviously will have to take that leap as well, and the government cannot do without interfering or intervening in some way or the other.
Well, absolutely. I think it's high time we do that. In fact, it's funny because ICT, or information communication technology, in the government schools, it started way back in 2000. But these were mostly hardware components being given to government schools, and they needed to be worked on by the teachers. And education is supposed to be positioned as a delivery platform through these ICT hardware machines. But look at them now, they're all probably gathering dust. And it's also funny that before COVID, most of the seminars or webinars that education folks attended used to always talk about technology, used to talk about how technology should become this big intervening tool. And no one really took that. I think when it came to walking the talk, it became quite slow. Fortunately, the COVID period has actually got the government to start thinking a lot about it. So in a lot of government schools today, people are using the basic WhatsApp, they're using radios, channels have started to get airing the school programs. But I think much more needs to be done, because that is not going to allow an interactive session. And fortunately, this new education policy that's going to come out, that I think will have a few areas that can be tweaked to make this better, especially when the education policy is really now working on categorizing children into the formative years, the preparatory years, the higher school. So there is this 5 + 3 + 3 + 4 concept. And that is where probably the government can do much, much more and have customized education modules to take care of pre-primary and to take care of the higher graded students. But I think to be fair, my concluding line, to be fair, I think they've started talking about it. We have seen a lot of conversations happening in this direction. So that's the silver lining on the cloud.
And Vineet, just to add what Vinesh said, also the university of the future is possibly a hybrid model. It's not a pure play physical model. It's not a pure play e-learning model. It's a hybrid model. So how do you evaluate teachers in that hybrid model? How do evaluation of students happen? What is the definition of infrastructure as per UGC? So I think those are things that are being discussed, and at some stage we will come to a new normal, which will become a new normal in education. But my belief is that it will be a hybrid university. It will not be a pure, yeah. So just because you raised that question of how education is so important.
Absolutely correct.
Absolutely, and new normals is going to be perhaps the most used word after 2020 and in the year 2020 as well. Mr. Marla, let me come to you now. Infrastructure is considered to be the soul of any nation. It's considered to be the essence of any platform and any ground. What we have seen so far, the real estate industry was not doing well at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but from whatever knowledge that I have about real estate, it's not been looking up. It's plateaued to some extent, but it's not been looking up. Coupled with what's going on right now, and you also sprinkle, what the government has given on top of that. What kind of a pie are we getting?
Okay, thank you for calling me, Vineet. Thank you. The present situation is from the time, actually, it's from 2018 onwards. You're talking about from the demon time and then the GST. Infrastructure and the real estate, the total sector was absolutely on a downfall. It was already on a downfall. It went further down in these last 2 years. And this particular COVID, the situation which happened, in which the lockdown was, we feel from the infrastructure side that it was announced in hindsight in a little bit of haste. It would have been possible that a certain period of a week, 10 days could have been given for the sector or for the country that the lockdown is going to happen. Two things have erupted out of it. One is that because of the big, the creation of the huge thing about the pandemic which has got created, it has got a scare in the people's mind. I'm talking about not just everybody like you and me. I'm talking about the labor in the infrastructure. The main thing, the main persons who are working there, I'm talking about 80% or 90% of the people are the labor, without which this particular industry doesn't work at all. So we feel that once this pandemic was announced and a date was there that from this particular time on the 22nd night, it was going to stop and nothing is going to happen, people got scared. And they really went away. And we are seeing the way the migrant laborers are going away. The laborers are the way they are going away. So this particular situation has got created because of various reasons. Fine, in United States we could have done much about it. But when the package was announced, we should have at least ensured that this sector of the migrant laborers was assuaged first. They should have been assuaged in terms of saying that things are there they will be taken care of, that they will be brought back into the economy. They were left feeling as if they were nobody. So we as in the infrastructure space, we are really worried, because as it is, the problem was on the downside, because the banks were not giving us any monies. We were having bigger problems in terms of the NPAs which were happening. We are not getting any further funding out of the whole thing here. Number 4, these laborers, we don't even know the migrant laborers are going to come back or not, because they feel rather scared. They're actually wanting to say that, no, we are going to take our time, about 6 months to 1 year. 6 months to 1 year, this industry is going to get finished. So we need to find out ways that that we get these migrant laborers back in the picture and try to get them back into work.
Right. So that is, again, a confidence building exercise which has to be initiated. It has to be galvanized, if that's the word I can use, by the government. Let me go to Mr. Amitabh Taneja now, who is CEO of Images Group. Retail is something, Mr. Taneja, for the last couple of months, it suffered a lot. There was an absolute dead silence when it came to retail. In fact, it has already been facing a lot of challenges because of the online module or model that has come about in the last few years. You couple that up, with this lockdown and people being apprehensive about going out, maintaining any kind of a contact. What does it give you? And firstly, also tell me your reactions, to the stimulus package when it comes specifically to the survival of the retail industry.
Sure. Thank you. So let me start by saying that why do we call United States of America a rich country? Because of the consumption economy. Let me say very clearly, retail is the most powerful measure of a country's economic health. We must know this. Anything produced, anything has to be retailed. When we say we'll open factories, I have friends who run factories of footwear and garments and anything. They say we cannot open the factories because the retailers are closed. Where will we send this stuff? Who will we produce it for? I think all of us are missing the point. Retail is the biggest driver of every business. Let me give you some numbers, and you will be, I'm sure you'll be shocked. Size of total retail in India is approximately US dollars 854 billion in India. Size of organized retail in India is about $100 billion organized. When I say the modern retail, the unorganized retail is $734 billion. E-commerce is only a percentage of the overall. It is approximately $26 billion. And let me say what you also said, Vineet, about online and retailers face the online retail. Online is just another channel. It is also a retailing business. Almost, if you see in UK, some of the brick and mortars are some of the biggest online retailers. So I don't think we should differentiate between online and offline. It is a form of retailing. I think when we talk about India economy, we should say retail businesses, which includes online and offline. I think what the government has really missed out is they wanted to say, Acha bhai, we have to secure people, save people, and also save the economy. I think save the economy could have been if you would have looked at the retail business very carefully. The shopping centers business, what are these shopping centers? Mr. Modi said we have to be a 5 trillion economy. So let me tell you what the retail industry, how it operates. The retail industry operates, if a retailer makes 20 crores in a year, he gives away around X crores for taxes. The rest, he goes to the bank and says, this is the money I have, give me more money, I will open 30 more stores. India was on that flow, which was a growing economy. So almost every retailer is leveraged heavily. We are not like Europe, where it's all done, settled, dusted. We were on a growth trajectory, and that is why retail is in a very sad state, and we need to do something about it, Because
so Amitabh, just a pointed question. We believe that retail is very important. What do you think the government should do now? If what has been announced is stage one, what should, if in the next set, what are the demands, the suggestions that you have for the government? What would you like to see?
So we have said very clearly, we have represented, I'm also the chairman of the Shopping Center Association of India. And I think I've worked more in these last 60 days than I've ever worked in the last 3 years. So in the last 60 days, we've been actually requesting RBI, Finance Ministry, every stakeholder in the government to actually post. So you must know that all the malls which are built in the country, there are almost 650 malls built. Every mall has leveraged there through the bank. So it's called LRD, lease rent discounting model. So all the rent.
Just for the benefit of the viewers, the lease rent discounting is 1,75,000 crores. Just the LRD is 1,75,000 crores. So imagine if the retailers default, then the shopping centers default on their loans. So you can imagine the kind of circular impact it has, just to support Amitabh's point.
Yeah, and the LRD, every mall has a LRD, which means if a rent comes, it goes straight to the bank. 90% of the revenue of a mall is rent. 90%, somewhere 95%. So you can imagine what this whole situation is going through.
Hence, Amitabh, what is your ask? What is this? What is the
our ask is very simple. 12 months of postponement of LRDs. Because when retail opens, as Vineet also said, the sentiment is, even if we open in June, July, whenever we open, June first week, I think we will have some retail opening. The sales of retail won't happen at that scale. It will go 30%.
Both
40%.
from circulation of money and consumer confidence. Both in terms of money in the hands of the consumer and consumer confidence. Yes.
I believe this is a 6 month. The longer this COVID lockdown stays, you can multiply it by 4 in terms of effect, in terms of retail consumption. So we have asked 9 to 12 months of postponement of this whole LRD business. The moratorium should be 12 months. It will be 1 year still. Same for retailers. Most of the retailers are leveraged. We've said 12 months, restructure the loans, extend. We are not asking for any doles. We are saying restructure it. If it was 10 years, make it 11 years. I think the whole idea is to support this system, support the retail businesses.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for those very important input. And we'll go to Prasad Sharma. Prasad, you run a company which is into artificial intelligence and, biomedics. So tell us first your response to the economic stimulus. What works in it? What doesn't? And second, what are your asks? If you had to make suggestions for the stage 2, part 2, installment 2, what would those be?
So I think, so I'll talk first about what I think of the stimulus itself. I think calling it big bang reforms itself is a misnomer, because if you look at it in terms of changes that have happened in the public sector or agri sector or defense sector, they are substantial changes. But when you compare it to the rest of the world, the kind of regulation that we still have, we are a very backward economy from that perspective. So this particular situation had offered the government a chance to make changes to how our bureaucratic structure works, how our judicial structure works, how our police structure works. So, it's very easy to remember for the current government because it's BJP reforms, right? So bureaucratic, judicial and police reform. But if you see, nothing has moved on that. If you look at, companies that want to now enter into India, for example, we are looking at setting up our...
I don't want to dilute what you're saying, but BJP also stands for men who are married and at home. Are Bartan Jhadu Pocha. So that's another story, but let's not that's only for,
I think all that is happening is right now emblematic of BJP then, but I think in terms of we are now looking at setting up a large AI research center in Europe, because the EU has opened its coffers and said that look, if you have a project plan, we'll fund you to 100% as long as you're creating jobs. In India, nothing of that sort has happened. Here, if people want to come in first, the large players will be given a red carpet. But if mid-sized, small players want to enter India, right, they have to first go and meddle with the bureaucracy, somehow get permissions. Once they are opened up, then they have to tackle tax terrorism. Nothing has been done about that. The police can come at your doorstep with one simple complaint.
I don't know if you remember, the Samsung global CEO was once summoned by a local court in Ghaziabad because a supplier came and complained that some money was pending. Right? I don't think any global organizations can come in into India and work like that. And I think earlier one of the speakers was telling how it's all been muddled. If it had been simple, like in the US, you can count out that, look, here's money in your hand. So underprivileged people get a dole, MSMEs get payroll support, larger businesses get restructuring of their loans, etc. Today, for example, if you look at a profitable business like ours, right, small business, profitable business, but we don't have enough money to last for 6 months. What is there for us in the entire stimulus? Nothing. They've said that there will be some sort of a mother of funds of 10,000 crores, which will have daughter funds scaling up to 50,000 crores. But you know what's happened before? They had a startup fund. Just registering for a startup is a bureaucratic quagmire, right? So I don't see anything good coming out of it unless there is those BJP reforms. And businesses like ours, we are looking at setting up probably 100, 200, 500 seater AI research center, which will not just bring jobs, which will not just bring revenue, but will bring IPR to India, right? For us, there's nothing. So what we're asking for is that give us, straightforward equity investments if you have to, give us straightforward payroll protection programs if you have to, give us guaranteed loans. Today, we don't, even though we have a credit limit, we can't take loans because we are currently not indebted. Only somebody who's got a loan can take 20% more loans, right? So I think it's been a muddled response. If it had been a clear, simple, here's money for the underprivileged, here's money for the MSMEs, here's money for the big businesses, it would have been a clear path. And there had to be the reforms in terms of your bureaucracy, judiciary, police, and a very smooth way for new businesses to enter, come create IPR in this country, because IPR is going to be the source of jobs in the future. Technology is the future. So that's what my view on that is.
Right, absolutely, and well articulated, Prasad. Mr. Marla, if I can come back to you, there were a couple of points in this stimulus package, which have baffled, the working community also. If you talk about the TDS, there were provisions being talked about in the stimulus package that the disbursement of the TDS will be expedited. One really fails to understand how is that a help. It's your own money which is being expedited back to you. And even if you talk about the Provident Fund, instead of 12, you give away 10. So how is saving lesser in any way a help to the working class man?
So it is basically not the TDS, it is basically your refunds to various sectors, starting from the individuals, starting from 5 lakhs, and then further to your the corporate side of it, and things like that. So they are going to expedite the refunds. It's basically trying to tell us that we are doing you a favor by returning your own money, right? So obviously whether the intent to give the money back was there or not is the moot question. So we are all stuck in a certain thing of not getting refunds for a long time earlier. The thing definitely expedited in 2019 or so, 2019 to the middle of that. But after that, obviously it's slowed down. Yes, people have received some part of their refunds with a lot of justification from their side. The second thing which you mentioned about is about the TDS, which is there, the TDS tax deduction at source of people by giving a 25% rebate on the TDS, where you are talking about a 10% in terms of professionals or in terms of whatever. So if you are talking about 25% of that TDS going, that is actually your money which is short deducted. So again, it is your money from one pocket to the other where the credit is given. And you're talking about PF again from 12% to 10%. Well, if there was a thing in terms of the government saying that they are going to put in that balanced amount of money of the 2% into your account for that particular purpose, it would have helped in some way. And obviously a 2% thing will not surely help a lot of people here.
Right, absolutely. It's not going to help a lot of people over here. But, the fact of the matter still remains, Mr. Gupta, that, it's the marginalized class in our country which needs the help the most. It's these people who are perhaps running from post to pillar, trying to, in fact, put food on the table on a regular basis. That is the primary challenge. And you think that the government, if they had focused on this facet of the stimulus package, it still would have been hailed as a decent recovery model. But even that has not been done to a satisfactory extent.
timely action is very important. And if you look at how easily and simply the lockdown was enforced in our country, starting from Janata curfew on 22nd March and thereafter complete lockdown from 25th of March. So I'm sure there must have been some planning done at the PMO level, but it was all done very silently and the entire country was asked to lock down in their homes and the business was completely stopped. So which means that there is an old proverb in Russia that before you enter, look at the exit. And if you see all Russians, they park their cars in the reverse order so that if they have to run away, they don't spend time in reversing their car. So therefore, we have to also follow the same principle that before entering, we must found the exit route. So when the country was put under lockdown, we have not made any plan that how are we going to exit from this lockdown. And today, after maybe more than 60 days, we still do not have any plan. And when the country was kept under lockdown, I think there was a national policy being probably executed by the Prime Minister's office, and the entire state machinery is supporting one single cause, that the nation has to fight together with Corona. Now, there is, of course, huge cost in fighting with this Corona, but nobody is talking about the money being spent for this Corona, because the ultimate goal is to save life of the people. Now, when we talk about the saving the industry, why are we talking about the money? Why are not we talking about saving the industry as a whole? And there has to be national policy. And we have to fight this battle as a nation, not as individual. Now, every individual has a different idea to fight his own battle. Whereas the government is not doing anything, the government is not thinking how the country has to fight this battle. Now, if you look at probably the resources which have been used to enforce a lockdown, the entire government resources and machinery has been used for the lockdown. But when we say that the entire resources of the government should also be used for opening the lockdown and for restarting the business, nobody is supporting. Rather, they are becoming more and more hindrance in opening the economy once again. So therefore, a strong suggestion that there has to be a national policy to open the lockdown, and that national policies should be supported by the state government as it has been done in the case of lockdown. And there has to be sector-wise plan for manufacturing sector, for service sector, for wholesale and retail sector, for travel and transport, for tourism and hospitality, for infrastructure, for steel, cement and coal. So if we have a national policy for all these sectors, I think we can fight this battle comfortably and united and without looking at the stimulus. So whatever resources are required, the government has to make a plan. Some resources will come from the individual pocket, some resources will come from the government.
Okay, Anurag is also back with us. Anurag,
So I just wanted to ask quickly, liquidity and, working capital is required till whenever the lockdown happens or even after the lockdown is gone. What are each panelist's suggestion on how to get the liquidity back, how to get the capital flow back? We can start with Amitabh and then Prasad and Hiren, and then Amitabh, how do we get liquidity back? How do we get cash flow, working capital for corporations?
So I took out a statistics. Which said the government tax collection till September 19 financial year target was 16 lakh crore. They collected 6 lakh crore. Okay. In 19, the target was 14 lakh crore. Till September, they collected 5,80,000 crore. And it is always, in the last 5-7 years, it's been reducing. It's not gone above 40-45%. Somewhere, there are very few people in this country who pay taxes. First of all, I have a thought. I'm not an economist, but I think some economist needs to think about it. Mr. Raghuram Rajan, the ex-governor of RBI, had a speech or a webinar which I heard, and he said the government cannot help everybody, for sure. Government should only help good companies who are successful companies who have been doing well, because good companies will kickstart the economy. Because if a good company is already doing well and has a future good model, if you keep funding him and you help him, he's a taxpayer also. So
And
if
an
you
employer. And an employer.
employer, because he will kickstart that economy. If you start funding every Tom, Dick, and Harry, it will be the Purane Pap. So you have to pick and choose good, profitable, healthy, futuristic companies and help them. So that's one thought of mine. The second thought is we want to increase the taxpayer base in India. If you have all the balance sheets, government has all the balance sheets. A lot of people have been paying taxes. I think when a company is making profits, doing well, you should help them, because everybody is suffering. Even if I was a good taxpayer, I'm also suffering right now. So every good company is also suffering. So I think that's my suggestion. Some economists should sit down. This will help us and tell others who are not paying tax that if you were a taxpayer, you would have got help. So I think the idea.
So help the individuals, the enterprises that pay tax, find a formula on how to incentivize them and help them. It does two things: it keeps them going, enhance the jobs and the revenue to the government,
good companies going.
and it gives the business incentives for others to pay tax, just in case something like this happens. Prasad, your suggestion on cash flows and funding?
So I think my suggestion is continuation of what I was talking earlier. I think we need to facilitate companies that create IPR, companies that create value, technology companies to come into India. We already have a lot of technology startups. We have a lot of technology brain here in the country. And if you see across the world, funding from VCs, other institutions has not slowed down. They're just sitting on dry gunpowder saying that, let's be a little cautious. So it's the time that India can open up. So you're saying that, look, we have got land, what 2 Luxembourgs set aside for industries to come into India. But why don't you do that with processes as well? Why don't you create and facilitate, funds, institutions and their investees? For services, even for manufacturing, right? Today, people want to get away from China, but we are not going to get those people to get away from China unless we create. See, Vietnam has succeeded in that, right? Why have they succeeded? Simple, straightforward structure. Companies come in, invest money, create jobs. Money circulates faster and more money circulates. So I think better facilitation.
Lower taxes, and we have a double.
Taxes will lower themselves if this happens, sir.
Fantastic.
Taxes will lower themselves if this happens.
How to get the media entertainment industry in a position of survival? I'm not even saying thriving. I'm saying surviving, because the revenues are hit.
As you rightly said earlier, also the whole advertising meltdown that has happened. Ad spend has virtually come off. It's 20% of what it was pre-COVID, and bringing that back in a way is a barometer of the economy. But I think what otherwise overall what should or what could be done. Again, I'm not an economist, but if at least if they can help freeze the clock, so all the aspects related to any business, so rent, salaries, or any other similar things can be provided for in some way or the other. And they're talking, done a lot of things on the loan side, but loan is finally, for a lot of companies, it's a liability, right? For everyone, it's a liability, it's repayable. So a lot of people who already, so for example, film production, already for projects which are 30, 50, 100 crores, there's a lot of loan funding that anyway goes into it. Now if you add further loan to it, those projects are bound to get unviable. So how do you ensure that the clock is kind of frozen to pre-COVID or the lockdown day, whatever, Janta curfew day, and at least the operating expenses, liquidity and cash flow. I'm not talking of the project expense, but operating expenses, if it is kind of taken care of, what it does is it gives a lot of confidence to the working class, as well as it helps that business survive. And if that business survives, that the content will get created, and that's just one example. Similarly, on the on the exhibition side, or on the broadcast side, I mean, at least if one can help freeze the clock in some way or the other and help the operational expenses. I mean, I know a lot of painful layoffs or furloughs and terms which we even
We
haven't
know that.
heard of in a long while have kind of happened in our industry. So I think if in some way the government can help, and I believe it's not just this one industry. This similar or different, respective aspects would happen across virtually every.
Vinesh Menon, your last comments on what asks you have from the government. What are the suggestions, some ideas?
Yeah. So I think, like I said earlier, education need not be as complex an industry as the other industries. However, I think it definitely requires a lot of attention. I mean, by the time the show is over, by the way, 2,000 new children will be born in India, right? And they're going to become adults down 20 years. And therefore, that understanding has to be very, very critical for the government. My ask remains the same. I think there needs to be a far better communication that goes down as far as fees is concerned. Most of the schools have about 1,500 to 2,000 students. And right now, they are at risk of not getting fees from the parents because there is a mixed advisory from the government. A group like ours, we've got about almost 50,000 students. And that's a fairly large size of fees getting stuck out there. Two, I think on the same side, there's a lot of push that schools face to pay off salaries. Nearly 65 to 70% of our the inflows go in salaries. So if that needs to be done, I think there has to be some way to help the schools do that. And especially these are all trusts, and trusts do not operate on a profitable or they operate on surplus and deficit. And one needs to keep that in mind. Number three, I think there's a lot of association happening between the edtech companies and academia, and the government could do well to try and put a little stimulus and a little bit of fillip in that area. And number four, I think there needs to be an exit strategy. Somebody mentioned, one of the speakers talked about an exit strategy, and I think we need to have a real solid exit strategy, at least for the schools, because you can't just say the schools will be open with 33% students coming in, and so on and so forth. So I think these are the four areas that I think we need to focus on.
Absolutely. Anurag is in fact not with us. There seems to be a problem with this connection. But the fact of the matter is, whether be it real estate, education, retail, or infrastructure, the crux of the matter is not to thrive at this point in time. It's only to survive. And in order to do so, the government has to act. The government has to, in fact, handhold the economy at this point in time. And most of the economic experts and even most of the people agree with that the government perhaps has to have a larger perspective or gamut when dealing with the problems that the economy is facing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being a part of this extremely articulate and insightful debate. Wish you all the luck, and stay healthy and take care of yourself.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.